as well as Sarah Torado, who is definitely one of my favorite realtors. And then coming us live, but remotely, we have Joel Olson. So we're going to go and introduce ourselves. I'm Patrick Loftus. I'm a real estate lawyer. And if you want to hire me to make sure your real estate transaction goes smoothly, that'd be great. So find me on Instagram, Loftus_law. Find me on TikTok at Loftus Law. Steve, tell me about you.
Yeah, Steve Davis. I work the Kamara Group, real brokerage, and I'm a residential realtor. You can find me on Facebook as Steve Davis, and you can find me on Instagram at I'm Steve Davis. My number is 312-513-6314.
Steve Davis might not be my favorite real estate broker, but he's always my favorite realtor.
Sarah Torado. I work with the Kamara Group as well. You can find me on Instagram at Sarah_Chicago Realtor. I'm also on Facebook. I do residential, rental, leases, as well as work with investors. So I just love to take on any projects, to help anybody in any way, and educate them throughout.
And I'm told you make one heck of an old-fashioned. Is that true?
Oh, thank you, sir. Yes, I do.
All right.
Okay, we need to test that.
Well, it is 10:14 a.m. on a Wednesday. You're probably hearing this on a Saturday if you've tuned in on your radio. So those are not the best times to be having an old-fashioned, but maybe some other time. Joe, introduce yourself. And I heard that there's some things going on in the mortgage market.
There is. I'm Joey Olson. I'm the branch manager for Joey Mathews Branch and Neighborhood Loans. He is the VA loan nerd. You can contact me at 708-969-0827, or you can get Joey Mathews on all the socials, the VA loan nerd. Yeah, with the election just happening.
I told you not to talk about that.
That word specifically.
What was I supposed to?
Keep going.
Bad word.
Yeah, so since October 3rd, the market's been pricing in a possible Trump presidency. They've considered his policies possibly inflationary, so that's why we're seeing the loss in basis points. So since yesterday, it's early, so the reaction might be an overreaction, but we lost 70 basis points. So that translates to an increase of up to 0.5% in rate.
So what you're telling me is that interest rates on mortgages have climbed 0.5 point based on things that happened.
0.5%.
Oh.
Yes. So, but I mean, it's like anything. The reaction may be an overreaction. So we'll see even where we settle at the end of the day. Because there's been some data that's come out. The jobs report came in at 12,000 gained jobs on Friday. They're anticipating 113,000. So like that is moving in the right direction for inflation. But the market is, pricing in a possible inflationary policy of Donald Trump.
Boy. Go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, there's still more too. So the Fed's meeting on Thursday the 7th. So before this airs, they'll have met. They're apolitical. So they may or may not cut rate. Yeah, technically apolitical. So, they may or may not cut rate. Volatility over the last month is definitely there. We're going to have to see where we go.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but the markets seem to value stability, and I'm not feeling very stable right this second. Am I off on that?
Yeah, that's exactly it. The reaction's based off the futures, so they're pricing that, and the data that would normally drive it, we haven't got the reaction you would typically see. Do I think it's an overreaction? I think they may look back and it's oversold, so we'll really have to let the dust settle and see which way we move, which actually leads into your show today of, the future of real estate over the next year.
Yes, indeed. One of my favorite things to do is make predictions that no one is going to hold me accountable for, and that is a lot of what we're going to do here today. So thank you for that really, really nice segue. It's almost like you've done this before, Joe. Well done. So, yes, indeed. We are going to be talking about 2025 and all the things that we're expecting to happen. I know that I've been hearing different things over, not just the past month or so, or the past quarter, 6 months, but all the signs that that I've been seeing are that real estate is going to continue to be going to continue to be hot for 2025, even more so than 2024. But I'm wondering what you guys think about that. Whether the things I'm hearing are matching what you are seeing on the streets, or if that's shifting at all. Steve, Sarah, would you like to opine?
So, genuinely, anything going on with rates and the market, people ask, how is business? And they expect me to say, oh, it's not going so well because, rates are bad. But that's never the case. If people have to move, they're going to move. If people have to sell, they're going to sell, they're going to buy. You just have to find the people that are going to do it. I'm not just, sitting around and all that. And then with the rates, whatever they're doing, come 2025, I have so many, people that I'm nurturing that are like, oh, I'm waiting for the rates. Oh, I'm waiting for, this to pass, that to pass. They're going to get to a point where, okay, now I got to get up and I got to move. Now I got to do something. And regardless of rates, that's always going to fluctuate. It's always going to change. So do what you got to do now. If you don't like it, refinance later. It's a simple solution.
Yeah, I would suggest waiting for something to happen so that you're ready. You're never going to find that sweet spot where the thing happened. You're like, yes, no, I'm ready, because something else is going to happen in your life or whatever it is. And it's going to keep feeling it's not quite the right time. Yeah. And, meanwhile, you've got 3 kids in 1 bedroom and it's not great, right?
Yeah.
I think the other thing to segue off of what Sarah just said is that it's not about the rates. If everyone thinks about the rates, it's not going to help them. What they need to worry about is their monthly obligation. Mm-hmm. So, if you can afford a $4,000 a month, then great. Your price point will dictate based on the rates, based on the price, based on location, based on taxes, based on PITI, principal, interest, taxes, insurance. So the fact is that it really doesn't have to do, or it has to do with rates, but it really has to do with your monthly obligation, which I think that's, to emphasize what Sarah already said, rates are one thing, monthly obligation should be what it means. And your buying power, yes, it'll go down based on possibly the rates going up, but at the same time, figuring out what you need to do is crucial. And then more importantly, as you said, you're in that, 2-bedroom and you have 3 kids, you got to get out of there anyway. So irrelevant, you're going to move.
I'd rather have to buy the store brand ketchup and have a place I like living in than the other way around, right? One thing that occurs to me is that, the average sort of lifespan of a person in their home is roughly about 4 to 5 years. I heard that somewhere. I don't have that.
It used to be.
It used to be. Tell me more, Steve.
So, probably about 10 years ago, it was about, anywhere between 3 to 5 years is what people would normally stay in their house. Now, what I'm understanding, especially with the rates changing the way they have, it's anywhere between 7 to 10 or even, 10 to 12. So I think it's really about what makes sense to you for the amount of time you're going to live there anyway and what's important to you and your family. The fact is, I don't think you should really say, oh, it's going to be 7 to 10 or 4 to 6 or whatever. It's the amount of time that makes sense to you, because the amount of time that you're going to be in the home, you're going to, make it your own. You're going to put your stamp on it. And then you're going to enjoy the time you're there, and then, move after that or stay there or whatever.
All right. Interesting. Because where I was going with that is, we saw in let's call it the second half of 2020 and most of 2021, things were scorching hot, and I couldn't get enough work done every day just to satisfy what was coming in. And if we're talking about that 4 to 5 year lifespan of someone in a home, 24 going on 2025, we're entering that window. So but what I'm hearing, Steve, is you're saying that window is extended, and part of the reason why is that people are choosing to stay put.
Yeah, and the reason being is most likely, as you just mentioned, the time frame is in 1819 when everything was at like 2.3%. It's basically free money now that it's 6.5%, 7%. So, or is it higher now?
I think it's about there.
Is it higher now, Joey?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
What is the prevailing interest rate? And I know that's an unfair question because it's like, well, if this, then that. But let's just say we're talking about a paper an easy file W-2 employee, they got 20% down. What would be
The
a
average
range of the
yeah.
prevailing interest rate for someone that I just described?
So we're in the low sevens. I
Okay.
mean, just generally speaking.
Okay.
And that's the very latest one I did on Monday was a 7.5%. I've seen anywhere between 5.5% and 7.5% in the preceding month. But as our friend Joey Mathews, the VA loan nerd, is fond of saying, you can have any rate you want if you're willing to buy down points or do other things to kind of shift the chairs on the deck, if you will. Sarah, are you seeing also this extended time frame where people are more willing to stay in the home that they're in as opposed to making a move?
Definitely, and it goes along with what you said about that whole rate change with 2021 to 2022. People are locked into these low interest rates, and because what's out there now isn't something that they like versus what they already have, they're not going to make a move because they're comfortable with what they're paying, they're comfortable with that idea, and not even willing to go and look, because at the rates where they're at now, there's tons of programs out there. There's the possibility of buying down. There's the possibility of asking the opposing side in a transaction for credits. There's programs 3-2-1 buy down, 2-1 buy down to decrease your interest rate in the first 2 to 3 years. And a lot of people don't know about these things. They're looking at it at face value and not doing any homework as to how they can change that rate and bring it down to where they want it.
I want to drill down on something I heard you say, which is that people are not even willing to look. Tell me more about that, because that seems quite interesting to me.
The biggest aspect about the way I do business is education. A lot of people don't know where to go to find the answers, who to talk to, or just generally aren't looking. It's just an idea. So a lot of the time it's me bringing to the table resources like lenders and people for them to talk to educate them on the things out there. They're just going off what's in social media and what they hear on the news and things like that, rather than going to a source and getting actual facts. There's a lot of lenders that are offering down payment assistance for free, money you don't even have to pay back. You can use that to buy down your rate. You can use that towards your down payment, towards paying your agent's commission, closing credits, all that stuff. So it's really just getting out to people, letting them know these options are there when they're willing to listen, and correcting them when they think that the only option they have is to keep this, COVID interest rate that they have.
Mm-hmm. Steve, what do you run into out there? Are you also running into a lot of people that just don't really have the facts? I guess I see the
wheel turning.
The wheel's turning, sure.
Did I break your brain?
Yeah, no. As Sarah was saying, education is key no matter what. And when you are discussing anything that has to do with real estate or anything that you know what you're talking about, that's going to educate someone else on the other side. People that are not educated or that need education or just need some understanding, that's where Sarah and I are at for reasons, right? That's why you do what you do. So if we have questions for legality purposes, we're going to call you. If we have questions about mortgage, we're going to call Joey. If we call, you know what I mean? So as far as making sure that everyone is educated and understanding what's going on, I think that is crucial. And I know that a lot of people think that the sky is falling when, rates go up or this happens or that happens. And the thing is the reality is it's what's a good fit for you, right? So buyers dictate the market, not sellers. And recently, as most of us are aware, it has become a buyer's market, or slowly becoming a buyer's market. What that means is now sellers, when they decided to wait to sell because they thought it would never end, are now, wait, now my property's not worth that price? Well, it might be worth that price, but not to buyers, because now buyers have the leg up. So I think it's just understanding the markets and what's going on and what we are foreseeing in regards to being educated ourselves and then being able to give that information to the other side.
Yeah, I think that definitely people overestimate how much they know about real estate and the real estate market and just how it works in general. And one thing I've always said is, regardless of whether you're talking about buyer market, seller market, the buyer ultimately, like you said, Steve, they're the ones with the dough that the seller wants. Mm-hmm. And if they are in a transaction and they feel like they're not being dealt with fairly, or that it's a situation where I'm not sure. I'm not fully prepared to commit me and my family to this over the next several years, if not longer. They always have at certain points of the transaction a way out without any risk really, and so the seller always has to understand that the buyer, regardless of how hot the market is, always has something you want, and they have ways of not giving it to you if it's not going the way that a buyer likes. So I do see from time to time, more often than I would like, sellers overestimating the amount of leverage or they think I can just do whatever I want. I've got a very attractive property. It's like, oh yeah, maybe, sort of, kind of.
Well, it's interesting you bring that up too, because the thing is, them thinking they have an attractive property, or product, if you will. Guess what? The fact is, with the whole NAR lawsuit and the settlement and so on, I am now starting to see out there, and I don't know about Sarah, but I am now seeing the people saying, well, we're giving this amount, as far as the buyer's agency fee versus what it was before. And the fact is like, now you reach out to your clients and say, hey, listen, you signed this buyer rep agreement and you're saying you're going to pay this fee. Just to let you know, when you're buying this property, they're only offering this percentage, and they get mad. And the fact is that these sellers think that that's a good idea. I'm here to tell you that's a terrible idea, because the fact is that what happens then if you have a great product, as we were talking about, and then someone's like, well, it's not that great of a product anymore because I don't want to have to pay my buyer's agent that fee. Now, I think you got to get paid for what you're worth, right? But at the same time, this is actually hurting a lot of the industry, in my opinion. And I get why, and they feel like buyer's agents were not worth that amount of money because they don't even do any work. And I'm here to tell you, and Sarah will tell you the same thing, we do a lot of work.
As a listing agent, I do a lot of work, but as a buying agent,
even more.
You do a lot of work.
I know. And it's like, so that whole thing with a product I have that's awesome, well, guess what? It could be a great product, but a buyer's going to dictate what that price should be, and they're going to dictate the fact that if it's a product that they like. And if you come in as a seller and say, we're only going to give this amount of money, well, hopefully that works out for you, because it's been tricky.
Yeah, I would call that penny wise, pound foolish by saying right off the top, I'm going to try to save myself 0.5%. That 0.5%. If you're saying I'm going to pay the buyer's broker 2% rather than 2.5%, guess what that buyer's negotiate that 0.5% on the price. So just pay the. I know it's easy for me to say, right? There's people rolling their eyes right now listening to this, but negotiate that 0.5 point into the overall price so that you walk away with what you think you need, instead of making that another thing to negotiate. Which you're essentially establishing another front for the buyer to try to negotiate you down. Don't do that.
No.
Sarah, are you also seeing sellers getting a little stingy with the buyer broker compensation?
Yes, sellers are not offering buyer broker compensation.
Like at all?
At all. I do have a client that it's like, okay, we need to revisit this. I've had multiple agents call me and ask whether or not we're offering the compensation, and because I say no, I don't even see a showing request coming in. Agents are actually out there and like filtering through these properties that are suitable for their clients and only choosing to go to ones that are paying them.
That's interesting, and that is also something that's going to get people sued.
Oh, yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah.
I have a client right now. We got an offer, and the client, and they weren't going to pay a buyer's fee. And I talked to him, and I'm like, hey, listen, this is what we're up against. And he's like, well, I don't know. What do you think? And I'm like, well, and I told him, and by the time I get back to the agent, she's like, yeah, they already went for another property.
Well, yeah, all of you agents out there who are listening to this, if this is indeed the trend, I'm going to have a lot more to talk about as time goes on, because that's exactly the kind of steering behavior that the lawsuit was really at the heart of that lawsuit.
Yes.
And so if you are legitimately, discouraging people from making offers on properties that aren't offering as much commission as you think they should, boy, I
always end those conversations by telling the agent, no, the seller is not offering buyer co-op commission, but please, if you're interested, submit an offer with an addendum requesting that the seller pay whatever percentage it is you're asking for to go towards your agreement with your buyer.
Yeah.
And as a professional, they should be doing that anyway.
Absolutely.
You don't.
That's
you
the
can
right
call
approach,
the
by the way.
agent.
When we get those, even though the original agreement between my seller and I said that they weren't going to pay that commission, we get this offer and they look at it and I crunch the numbers. You always give a seller net sheet, let them know what they're getting at the end of the day when closing comes. Then they're like, oh, that's really not that bad.
That's the right approach. That's the legal approach. Okay.
And it's all about net, like you said.
Yeah.
It's all about net. What is your net that you want to walk away with?
Yep.
Yeah.
Forget everything else.
It's not any different than when somebody makes an offer with a closing cost credit built in. I mean, we've been doing that since, I don't know, forever. And really, every seller understands that what they're evaluating is the difference between the offered price and that closing cost credit. I really don't see how the negotiation over a buyer broker commission is any different, other than people feeling some kind of way about it, I guess.
I got something on that, Patrick, if you want to hear it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, so, I mean, this does come down to affordability as well. So like some of it may be the buyers walking away from it just because
Absolutely.
of the cash to close, because, I mean, I have a conversation now, it's a newer conversation, it's like, hey, this is what you're approved for, this is what we're gonna need cash to close. If you're paying buyers agent compensation, like that does change the cash to close, and they may not even qualify anymore. And then they also have their buyer's rep agreement up front, so I typically know what that is. And I can, tell them. So that may be part of the issue there. It's less affordable, and so they have to move on to something where the seller's covering the buyer's agent compensation.
Well, you make a good point there,
thanks
too.
for saying that. Absolutely.
Yeah, is because, and that's also why it's super important to have a lender that knows what the heck they're doing, because there's a lot of lenders out there that are, winging it, or they're a 1-800 number, which is a absolutely horrible idea. For buyers out there that are listening to this, do not call a 1-800 number, please, because if you'd like to actually buy the property and get it to the closing table without any headaches, and more importantly is be educated throughout the transaction and feel good about it, then you need a professional that is, that is a local, or someone that knows what they're doing, even if it's a out of a state situation. So
your lender's phone number should have a local area code attached to it.
Yes, yes, or at least not an 888 or an 800.
Yeah, I mean, but even if it's if it's 313, I don't like that one either. Joe, where am I going with that? He knows. We shouldn't. I never know which corporations are sponsors of AM 820. We're fax meter. So I got. So my shot. That's my homage to Charlie Bellefontaine.
He will appreciate that, Patrick.
With Chicagoland Home Inspectors.
Chicago.
TheHomeInspectors.net.
He's seriously gonna punch you for that.
I don't have to be bigger, stronger, or tougher than anyone. I just have to be quicker.
Faster. Mm-hmm.
What they say.
That's right.
All right. So, Joe, one thing I wanted to ask you earlier, but then we kind of got off to the races with the conversation, was Sarah and Steve were talking about some of the things that they find themselves needing to bring buyers up to speed on when it comes to introducing them to what the real estate market's really like. What does that look like on your end? What are the kinds of things that you find yourself regularly educating your clients about that, probably people take for granted or maybe don't even realize?
It kind of goes back to what we were already talking about, but it's, trying to time the market is never a great idea. Because I had quite a few clients, like, waiting for the Fed to announce, their cut and rate, and we've gone up, 1% since then. So it's just trying to time the market. I try and, get the conversation back to goals and affordability, and then from there, out something that works, but it's like, it's mainly a lot of rate concentration, and we already touched on it, like concentrating solely on the rate is gonna cause you trouble in the long run. So
Yes.
that's where I find myself consistently talking about trying to get the conversation back to that, because we are working against, social media, just people talking in general, with a lot of concentration just on that one part of, buying a home.
And I feel like that's always been that way. Like it's always
Yeah.
about the rate. It's your obligation, your monthly obligation, not the rate.
Yeah. And when you have volatility like we've seen over the last couple of years, I mean, you're just setting yourself up for disappointment consistently. It's like if you're trying to time it, you're like, all right, I'm going to hold off. And then the rate moves 1% in less than a month. It's like, you planned your move around that, you're going to be disappointed.
Well, kiddos, just so everyone is clear, and we say this I think every week, but I think it's worth saying is that the Fed's rate doesn't directly or even really indirectly tie into what your mortgage rates are. Mortgage rates are much more closely correlated with the 10-year Treasury. Joe, am I right about that?
Correct.
So, how the 10-year Treasury is being traded, it doesn't really have a close causal connection with the interest rate that a bank can borrow money from the Federal Reserve. So, disabuse yourself of the notion that I'm waiting for quote unquote rates to come down, and then thinking, oh well, the Fed is going to lower interest rates, thus it's going to cause mortgage rates to come down. Joe, as you said, they lowered the Fed lowered the rate and they went up, right?
Yeah, I mean, you're dealing with, investors, that they're going to plan for the future, and like that is also emotional, so like there's people selling off, there's people buying, and it's not necessarily a direct correlation to a Fed cutting or increasing rate.
Right. And I'm glad you made that point, because, anytime you're as an investor in real estate or really anywhere, if you're trying to compete against professional investors, you will lose almost every time, unless you're buying GameStop and you found that short squeeze. I got news for you. Those things happen once in a blue moon. It's the reason why you can even identify the one time that happened. I guess AMC also, but I'll save that for my other podcast, Wall Street Bets Weekly. Anyways, all right, let's get back to the topic, which is 2025. Sarah, you said you are kind of nurturing some clients who are maybe dipping a toe in, maybe dipping a couple toes, maybe even up to an ankle into maybe kind of thinking about it. Tell me a little bit more about where in the process you're seeing these people are, and what are the types of things that you're doing to nurture them?
A lot of it has to do with their fear of getting a mortgage at a high rate. Everyone's afraid to take that dive. So it's a lot of nurturing, educating, letting them know the process and the options of down payment programs. I have a lot of partnerships with lenders. When I hear that there's something new out there, I'll tell some clients, see if it applies to them, if they're ready to take that dive based on the help that's out there right now. And just the fact that understanding the process. A lot of people, whether they're first-time home buyers or not, sometimes forget how the home buying process goes, and even then, it changes constantly. And the fact that affordability is such a huge thing now, and there are buyers out there that can't afford to pay their agents, and I have some of those. And if that's the case, we need to let them know that it is an option to ask the seller to do it, and if not, they can't pay it. We got to find you a home with someone willing to do so.
What do you think is driving that fear of a mortgage? I mean, at the end of the day, if you have a lease and you're renting and you're paying a certain amount, well, mortgage is really the same thing, except you've locked that in for 30 years instead of
Paying somebody else's mortgage.
Well, or just simply locking in your monthly housing costs for 12 months.
Yeah.
The older I get, the more I realize 12 months ain't that much time, because I can't believe we're in November of 2024. I mean, I got that old man thing going on. We're like, oh my gosh, where did this year go? It's just how it is. Steve, be nice.
I didn't say anything.
Calm down. You're about the same age I am, so I don't want to hear it from
I'm
you.
older than you. Slow down.
Are you?
Yeah,
You look great, man.
I appreciate that. 32 looks good on me. You know.
32. You and Charlie have weird math, but okay. So, Steve,
Sir.
So, are you also experiencing similar things where people kind of have this fear of I guess a long-term commitment?
So
I think we did it again.
let's go with
Yeah,
let's
right,
go with the
Steve?
houses here.
Goodness
So
gracious.
yeah, so as far as the rates are dictating people either jumping in, jumping out, right, or deciding not to dip their toe in the water, like we talked about. It also has to do with the media. Media has blown it up and said this is going to happen, and this is these are going to be horrible, and then there's going to be a crash, and then there's a bubble, and then there's this, and then there's that. The fact
The
is,
mainstream media, Steve.
yeah, exactly. So
Get him a red
my
hat.
answer to that is that people are always going to have hesitancy based on what they think, what they're educated on.
What they
Again,
hear.
education is very important. What they hear, what people are saying. I mean, everyone has an opinion. Everyone has fears. And those fears are legit. And they're not like, hey, I'm saying you shouldn't have those fears. You should understand. It's not even about a fear. It's about education. If you're educated and you still have a fear, okay. But at least make sure you're educated. And the fact is, like Joe said, like we all have said, it's not about the waiting aspect. If it's right for you at the time, take it. Don't worry about the whole media aspect of the rate or the this or the that. I'm not telling you these things so you make a judgment based on the fact of me telling you to do it. It's what's best for you. And that nearly needs to be emphasized. And you also have to understand that, like, people are going to say what they're saying. People are going to, believe in what they believe in. It's what's best for you. And am I running into it? Absolutely. And all I can do is just give them the basic information in regards to here's what's going on. Here's what you should understand. Here's what we're being told, because nobody has a crystal ball, right? So the fact is like, here's what we're understanding. Here's what our mortgage people are telling us. Here's what, is going on. And that's all we can go by. But there are certain agents out there that I have
Name names.
heard these
Let's do it.
stories where they go ahead and they give a story, a spiel, a bogus information to people and say what they say, and then the people are like, oh, okay, I should do that. No, it's not about
Get a
that.
second opinion.
Stop listening to people that don't. They're uneducated as it is. You need to talk to people that actually know this industry. So,
All right, we need to let
get
Steve,
me on my soapbox. Keep going.
We need to let Steve, maybe take two. And anyways, what a lot
It's
of
called
what I'm
passion, Patrick.
hearing, you are
passion.
You are a man of great passion.
That's right.
All right. Listen, I think the way I would sum that up is something I said quite early on, which is that the market hates instability, and the market is made of people, and the people you're dealing with also hate instability, and that's what you get when interest rates climb by 3, 4, 5 points over the course of 18 months, right? So before we go any further, I think it is time to reintroduce ourselves. My name is Patrick Loftus. I'm a real estate lawyer. I help you when you're buying or selling a home, and I help that process go smoothly, stable, if you will. Find me on Instagram, Loftus_law. Find me on TikTok, Loftus Law. Steve, please.
I'm Steve Davis. I am a real estate broker, and I actually educate people and help them understand what's right for them. As well as you can find me on Instagram at I'm Steve Davis, and then my number is 312-513-6314. Facts matter, as you said, Patrick, I'd have to say.
Well, it is facts matter. You know, Charlie loves to say where the facts matter.
The facts
It's
matter.
not the facts. It's where facts matter.
It's the fact.
All right. Take
Sarah?
that. Put it in your garage.
All right. I'm Sarah Torado, also a real estate broker. And you can find me on Instagram at Sarah with an H _ Chicago Realtor. I do leasing, residential investments. I work with a lot of investors that do home flips, things like that. I love studying the market. I work with high communication and transparency. It's very much a team effort. I'm here to be your advisor and to guide you through a process, this huge step in your life, and make it as smooth as possible and try to relieve everybody of this stress.
Stability. You know, don't let Sarah's cool, calm demeanor fool you into thinking she is not also a person of great passion. She doesn't wear it on her sleeve like Steve does. So, you know. Anyways, Joe, please introduce yourself again.
Yep, I'm Joey Olson. I am kind of monotone, and I'm producing sales manager for Joey Mathews, a VA loan nerd who is not monotone. My number is 708-969-0827. Text or call me.
Well, you're doing a lot to maintain the strong Chicago accent contingent
Are you saying it's
on this
fake?
program. Well, you know what? There are a number of different Chicago accents, I would say. But you know, Joe Olson's more of a Gratchkey kind of you know Chicago accent. I feel.
Yeah, I also grew up in Montana, so I have a very weird accent.
There it is.
About half Montana.
You know, it's
So-
those half Chicago accents will really throw you off.
Are you screwing it up for the rest of us?
Well, I'll tell you a quick story. I was in France many years ago on a train, and so I've kind of this was while I was in law school, and I went to law school in Louisiana. So you can't really help but pick up some of like the local pronunciation and dialect. Like, you know, I don't say oil anymore; I say oil. So it's sort of like halfway there, and I had some people tap me on the shoulder. They're like, "Where are you from?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm from Chicago, but I live in Louisiana." They're like, "You've got the most confusing accent I have ever heard." I'm just like, "Yeah, but you're French, you know." So, anyways, I'm about to. We just lost our entire French contingent. I don't have it. I don't hate you guys. You've got awesome wine. The food's fantastic. Your country's
Stop talking.
beautiful. You're just really rude. You're rude to me. Anyways, all right, Steve. Tell me, what are the kinds of things? This is the time of year that real estate. Pay attention, come on. This is the time of year that real estate brokers are sort of consolidating, getting ready, strategizing for the next year, right? Because this is traditionally the sort of the ebb portion of the real estate market. Whether or not that's actually true right now, I mean, you know, everyone has the year that they have, right? It doesn't always follow the script, but regardless, you still do have to take the time to strategize. What are the kinds of things you're doing to be ready for 2025?
So, you know, just like when we were in COVID, it was all about putting systems in place. It was a lot more then. However, this one is very much the same in regards to making sure that I'm reaching out to my buyers and sellers who have been on the fence or who have shown interest in, moving, buying and selling, investing, that sort of thing. So what I'm doing is I'm reaching out to them. I'm putting on different types of events to make sure that I'm getting in front of them. I make sure that, you know, we have coming up, we have a pie event where you come in as a, to get professional photographs done, perhaps for the holidays for you and your family, as well as you can take a pie home. We're going to have drink, we're going to have music, so on. It's just going to get together of saying, you know, thank you. It's client appreciation aspect, as well as, you know, I'll send out holiday cards and things like that, and then prepare for the next year. And just make sure that I have all the ducks in a row, that I reach out to those clients who have talked about, like I said, buying and selling, and just staying in communication with them. Also, one of the big things is an annual review. So I'll reach out to them and say, hey, here's where we're at from last year to this year, so I can bring them some, some evidence of what's going on with the markets, with their house, with their situation. And it could be a good or bad, but at least it educates them and helps them understand where they're at and, you know, what potential moves they could or could not make based on their situation.
Wow, that sounds like a lot.
It is.
And you've also got to try to sell real estate. Sarah, same question. What are the kinds of things you're doing to prepare for 2025?
Also similar. So around this time of year is always when you expect for business to slow down, and I feel like every year it's slowing down later and later in the year. Still staying busy, still staying, friends and family. Let's go out do this. Like I got to keep putting it off because still running around all day yesterday. I thought it was still Monday. I've just been so busy, and
It was Tuesday.
that's the point.
Yeah, that was
sorry.
what she was getting at. But
Anyway.
I'm gonna mute him.
Yeah, let's do that. So, again, like Steve said, it's just a matter of staying connected with those you already have in your line of business and making new connections. So around this time of year, I do an event in the Logan Square community. That's where I was born and raised, an area that I love. Just to let people know that I'm their local real estate agent. We do, we bring a DJ, we have raffle prizes, and I bring a whole team of everybody that's involved in the real estate process. A lender, I got a general contractor this time, inspector, attorney, insurance agent, to just mingle and get to know people, let people know we're human. It's not always about cramming real estate down your throat and trying to get a sale. If you have questions, we're here to answer, and just getting new people in to talk to and educate and get them to thinking about real estate and exposure.
That's awesome. And to reiterate what you're saying too, during this time, this is actually one of my favorite times. Yeah, we slow down, but here's the thing. This is the time that we can, reset all our systems and figure out how to do everything and make sure we have a very, very strong, quarter one and quarter two and that sort of thing. So I think, with your event, Sarah, I think that goes above and beyond. I think people should really appreciate that, effort there for sure. So I think that's awesome.
Thank you.
Speaking of Logan Square, RIP to the Revolution
Oh
brew
my
pub.
goodness, I couldn't believe that. I've always loved going there, but I will say there were the last couple times I've gone and the food quality's just kind of gone down. I could have seen it coming.
Boy,
But-
kicking them when they're down.
Sorry, guys. Sorry.
Well, listen, I've lived in Chicago long enough to know that nothing really lasts forever, does it? And if I had to guess, based on what I know of Logan Square, which is not nearly as much as you do, something else is coming that will be even better.
You've heard?
No,
okay.
that's my
And
that's my gut.
Logan Square, is really just a revolving door of awesome businesses and restaurants,
restaurants
and
are
bars
amazing
and
over there,
boutiques. Such
for
cool
sure.
stuff walking up and down Milwaukee there.
Yeah.
So
Or even on
I'm
Armitage
excited.
and Fullerton.
Yeah.
All the restaurants over there.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if you guys experienced this, but I was reading this earlier. Is that the really where the hottest markets are here in Chicago in terms of neighborhoods are. We're talking like Bucktown, Wicker Park, but also like that Milwaukee Avenue corridor is what they're calling it. And all you gotta do is take the blue line toward O'Hare, and man, it just
Leaves you right in the heart, right across the street from the Eagle Monument. You can go left or right, up and down Milwaukee, and the fun don't stop.
the fun
don't
stop. Well, people of our vintage, Steve and I, we're probably more.
There's things there for you guys as well.
All right, slow down over there.
We're
Couple of
probably
antique
more. I know
shops.
Steve's looking for a place with a pool table, right?
Did you just say antique shops? Oh my God.
So
I could
there's
totally see Steve antiquing.
Oh,
there's
hell no.
Emporium. Emporium's got pool tables.
Emporium's
You know?
classic.
That's a joke.
What?
I don't like Emporium. I don't like that place.
Excuse me?
No.
What's your problem?
Nope.
Why?
I prefer diamond pool tables.
Oh,
Very
okay.
good pool
so,
tables.
So he's being a pool table
That's
star?
right. I forget.
right.
He's a professional.
Yeah, well,
with that.
some of us just want to play Frogger, all right?
That is an awesome game.
Sarah,
for sure.
Frogger is this game that first appeared on the Atari 2600. It's speaking of video games though, I mean, just
2600.
I'll tell you, I listened to a whole podcast about the 2600. But if you really want to have just a whole afternoon of geeking out on old video games, the cabinet ones, there's this place called the Galloping Ghost out.
Ooh.
I think it's out toward LaGrange. It's in Brookfield.
Okay.
This place, I don't know. You keep walking door through. They've got, I think, 800 different cabinet games, and they're all set for free play. So
That's cool.
You remember there used to be like these things called arcades that you go to as a kid. You get tokens, and
Of course.
every single game that you ever played as a kid growing up in those arcades is there. It's fabulous. You know, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle game, the Simpsons game, all of there's 300 of them seem like they're airplane shooting games. You know, from World War II. Somehow that was, I guess, like all they really wanted to make at some point. Definitely worth checking out. Galloping Ghosts in Brookfield.
Yeah, I wrote that down. I like that a lot.
And
That sounds like fun.
There's a little Serbian restaurant up the street.
We'll have to check it out. I'm interested in checking that out
Do
for
they have
sure.
a pool table?
Yeah, no, they don't. So there might be a pool video game.
Oh, settle.
There might be. Yeah, there probably is, actually.
Yeah, why not? Yeah,
That
I
makes
just
sense.
see Steve posting up at the billiards. You know. Anyways, okay. So, from my perspective, 2025, I am expecting things to be. I'm expecting things to be busy because I really do think that, just in my anecdotal conversations with people, they are. I've been saying this for a while, by the way. Yeah, it's the old frog in the frying pan, and for if that's too graphic for you, I'm sorry, but you start off in a cool frying pan and you turn the heat on. It doesn't jump out right away. You jump out when it gets too hot, and the longer Steve. I love when I come up with like a very a very standard thing. Like
That's a standard analogy
that people say, and
Okay.
Steve's like, I've never heard that.
No, I've heard of it.
It's a thing. Anyways, as time goes on, that place that people, especially if they bought it based on their specific COVID needs, I mean, we're basically done with that. I mean, notwithstanding, who knows what could happen in the future, but at some point, and I think it's coming sooner than later, people are going to start as back as people are required to go back to the office and all that stuff. All of the people that were pining to buy a condo in West Loop or River North or Streeterville or Gold Coast, they're going to rediscover their interest in doing that. And so I think you're gonna start to see some migration patterns, some shifting of people who want to be closer to where they're having to commute to, where they're where their favorite restaurants and bars are, where all of this stuff is still happening downtown. I didn't leave. I'm still basically downtown. Been there for 15 years. Stuff's still happening. What was really cool was the Halloween parade on State Street.
Oh.
Have you ever gone?
I don't think so.
Oh, it was fabulous. So I strongly recommend next year, if you have. I mean, we're right on State Street, and that's where the parade goes. But yeah. So are you guys seeing any of that, or am I just completely blowing smoke with some of the migration patterns that I'm expecting to see?
Going back to 2025, I think it's going to be very busy. I think we have answers that people have been looking for, and it's going to make a big difference in regard to, I think, what people have been the perception, as well as, I went to a conference and they were saying that the rates were supposed to drop a minimum of 5 times. Joe, please chime in there, because that's what I was told by economists. Is that accurate? Not accurate.
Please make a prediction
Yeah.
that we will definitely hold you accountable for.
Yes, please do.
Go for it.
This will be slightly vague. Yes and no. So originally,
You fence
it made
sitter.
reevaluate. Yeah, well, so they said it's not guaranteed now, and that's kind of what moved it. Is the Fed came in and said, they're going to do rate cuts based on data. So we're anticipating rate cuts still, but the amount of rate cuts may have changed. So we'll know Thursday, which is tomorrow. They were a little more hawkish than we expected.
So are you saying it would be more or less now? I would say less, right?
Possibly less, yeah.
Okay.
Or instead of a 50 basis point drop, we do a 25. So it's going to be data driven as of right now. So it may be 3 to 5 instead of 5. So it's going to be as the data comes in. If we're moving in the right direction still, then we'll continue to have rate cuts. If we're not, then we'll pause.
Have you seen a lot on your end in regards to a lot of the people that wanted to buy, but they've waited as well. Do you see, you anticipate an uptick on that?
Yeah, I do. And that going into 2025, like my approach is going to just continue to be like finding solutions for people that need homes, but there are still a lot of people on the sideline waiting for rates to come down. And, one thing I like to do is do a side by side, the property value now at the higher rate compared to the future property value at that lower rate. And sometimes they're actually going to be paying more, so.
Gotcha.
Because you could do a 5.5% compared to 7% with the increase in property value that we've seen over the last couple of years, and you're paying more a month. So the short answer is yes. I'm still seeing people sitting on the sideline.
Yeah, let's not forget that mortgage rates don't exist in a vacuum, nor does the Fed interest rate, right? The reason those rates come down when they do is because of a softening of the economy. The fact of the matter is that the macroeconomic indicators, by and large, are suggesting that we're not in a soft economy. And so there isn't a good reason to lower interest rates to increase economic activity. The economic activity is happening at this interest rate. And so what is the expectation? I mean, if you're waiting for interest rates to come down, what you're saying is I'm waiting for the economy to soften. And the risk you're taking there is that the economy is going to soften, and so is your economy going to soften. And so, as I'll repeat what our good friend Steve Davis has been saying is make the move when it makes sense for you. Don't wait for some magic thing to happen that is existential to you that you have no control over. And then to say that, yes, I'm now ready because other stuff is happening all over the place. We're getting to the end of our allotted time, unfortunately, because, I know we all have so much more to say, but, we're limited. We're limited. And I can't afford to pay for the overtime. It's quite expensive. So in any event, I'm Loftus Law. I'm Patrick Loftus of Loftus Law. I am Loftus Law as well. Just one me. Find me on Instagram, Loftus_Law. Find me on TikTok at Loftus Law. I'm active. I post stuff every day, and you might like it, but you won't know unless you go follow me. Steve?
I'm Steve Davis. I work for the Kamar Group with Real Brokerage, residential realtor. You can find me on Instagram at I'm Steve Davis, Facebook with Stephen, Stephen Davis. And my number is 312-513-6314. If there are any questions that you have and you need education, please feel free to reach out. Sarah.
Sarah Torado here with Kamar Group, powered by Real Brokerage. You can find me on Instagram at Sarah_Chicago Realtor. Looking forward to connecting.
Joe, you have 13 seconds.
Ready, go.
Joey Olson, producing branch sales manager, 708-969-0827, and my NMLS is